After a long collection of hit songs, albums, and sold-out concerts with the Jacksons, in 1977, at only 19 years old, Michael Jackson was asked to play the Scarecrow in the 1978 adaptation of the Wiz musical that was frequently showing at Broadway at the time. Diana Ross was also casted to play Dorothy in the film, alongside Nipsey Russell, Richard Pryor, Ted Ross, and Mabel King. For preparation of the role, Michael had to move out of his Encino home to live in New York City, mainly with his big sister LaToya Jackson. At the same time, Joseph Jackson, who had become a teen idol, was filming the sixth season for Meet the Robinsons, but had some time beforehand to coach Michael on his role and would regularly watch tapes of lions or cheetahs to get the moves down packed for the role. However, conversations began to grow between Sidney Lumet and Berry Gordy when they had realized that Michael and Joseph's uncanny similarities to each other would openly benefit the film's chances of success. And that Joseph would also get the part for the Scarecrow since he was to be a fantastic substitution for Michael if he was unavailable or unwell, a role which Joseph was already customized to. Jackson stated in his 2008 book, In the Eyes of His Twin, The Story of Joseph Jackson, that his father Joe Jackson regularly used Michael and Joseph's resemblance to his advantages. He would force and instruct mainly Joseph when he was a young boy to step in for Michael whenever he was unable to perform with the Jackson Five. Engage in the already grueling rehearsals he was unexpectedly subjected to and get ready to go on stage with the other brothers in Michael's place. Quote, "Don't get me twisted, being on stage is very exciting. There's nothing like it. You feel the energy of everybody who's out there. They're there to support you and to love you and to hear their favorite songs, and you just cannot help it but light up. Oftentimes, I would lose myself and really get into it. But at the same time, when I would step out on stage in front of thousands of people, I don't feel that I have no other choice but to become brave. I did not want to go on stage when I was a kid. I was ducking and crying and hiding, just hoping my father wouldn't see me hiding behind people when he was calling me on. I wanted to go home. I just wanted to play and be a normal child. I did not want to go on stage most of the time." Though Jackson had intense stage fright, he gave in as he knew the audience would never tell that it was not Michael and they would love the routine no matter what. Sometimes following or before these performances Joseph was not prepared for, which continued for years and years, Joseph would then be kicked off and made to watch backstage by Joe in favor of Michael still joining the brothers on stage. Him switching for Michael would ultimately remain his quote-unquote job for many years until him officially joining the Jacksons in 1975. And so, without any time to lose, Michael and Joseph were both asked to do the role as the Scarecrow, evenly switching between them both in case one got too exhausted, and the two accepted the role, deciding together to go to New York together with sister LaToya. Michael and Joseph's mother, Catherine, once said, "When Michael was asked to go do the movie, Joseph was definitely a big thought to land the role in it as well. I think it was to do with their appearance that they both were doing the same role together." The shoots were long and grueling, lasting all day underneath the World Trade Center towers. At night, the cast went out to visit New York City. Rob Cohen took Michael and Joseph, along with other members of the cast, to Studio 54, the disco hotspot known for both its crazy sexual escapades and celebrity regulars like Andy Warhol, Mick Jagger, Cary Grant, and Brooke Shields. The rest of the club took notice whenever Michael or Joseph danced. The gay side of the dance floor would stop, Cohen said, and the hetero side would stop. During lunch on the Wiz set, Lumet, the director, told the oblivious Michael and Joseph that women around them were like ricocheting bullets all over the place. On the set, both twins took their choreography sessions extremely seriously with Louis Johnson, who'd been a pioneering African-American ballet dancer over years of punishing Hollywood racism. In the film, Michael took over one scene where he did some impressive steps with Diana Ross, as he clumsily learns to walk after being imprisoned by crows on his scarecrow pole. In giant clown shoes, he stumbles, rolls on the ground, and knocks out his knees. They had seen Charlie Chaplin. Both were great fans of Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, said Johnson, who was in his early 80s, by phone from his New York home. So I let them use it. Michael asked me, could I do this? And then enhanced it. The Jackson Scarecrow costume was very hot and cumbersome, with a huge curly wig, a hat and vest stuffed with scraps of newspaper, not to mention a painted-on nose. Tony Walton, the film's production and costume designer, didn't know both twins were tormented by their brother's constant teasing. They were called Ugly and Big Nose. They were thrilled to have their noses covered, Walton says. The costume, stuffed with newspaper and bits of trash bags, was more cumbersome, but both Jacksons made it work. Quincy Jones paid attention to both the Jacksons, Michael first. When it came time for the Scarecrow part, Michael stepped to the microphone and began to sing, not the bright-sounding Michael Jackson of yesteryear, but an 18-year-old whose voice had evolved into something as smooth and powerful as the Concorde. Cohen, the producer, noticed Jones gaping. He looked at him the way a jaguar looks at a goat, Cohen says. It was like, I want him. Then the two struck up a serviceable working relationship between them when Michael approached him with a task. I need you to help me find a producer, he said. I'm getting ready to do my first solo album. The two discussed the possibility of renewing that relationship again on the projected solo album, for which Michael had already written 3 songs. Jones became curious about how he was able to write songs without a musical instrument, in which Michael responded, I hear something in my head. I make the sounds with my mouth. On hearing this, Jones grew interested. There's an instrument that can make the sounds you want. I can write anything down on paper, Jones replied. If you can hear it, I can write it down. And immediately went to work on Michael's album, simply titled Off the Wall. In relation to Joseph Jackson, Jones and him officially met after Michael continuously begged Jones to allow Joseph to write songs for him while doing early production for Off the Wall. Jones had already brought in Rod Temperton, but still felt very intrigued once Michael revealed to him that Joseph had written over 13 of the Jackson 5's greatest hits and had a wonderful gift for music and song and dance delivered from God. Jones eventually got hold of Joseph over the phone one evening to see if he was interested in the songwriting process, which Jackson ultimately agreed to do. However, what was supposed to be a 2-minute phone call, according to Jones in a 1986 interview, ended up being 2 hours. I asked him if he wanted to do it. I said, is it all right if you work with us for the album? I figure you'll be great for it. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, Mr. Quincy. And as soon as he said that, something in me said, I want to speak to this kid for much longer because it is clear to me that he has a lot of ideas and talent. I don't remember how long we spoke, probably 2 hours or over that, but we'd be joking and having fun on that call. Are you kidding? He knew how to make any situation a party. If you ask musical stuff around him, that kid's not going to do nothing. He will just say something completely understanding like, creating magic is a wonderful thing. It's very fun for me especially. I just love to make people feel happy and fulfilled rather than upset or lonely. What Quincy Jones and Joseph Jackson had realized over their phone call, according to Jackson in his 2008 autobiography, is that they had already met during Jackson's filming of a scene in The Wiz. The scene involved the Scarecrow reciting a quote to Dorothy, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion after they have discovered that The Wiz was a fraud. The quote Jackson said was, success, fame, and fortune, they're all illusions. All there is that is real is the friendship that two can share. After that scene was over, Jones had Jackson fresh on his mind and would not stop thinking about him and his high amounts of talents as a singer, dancer, and actor, but didn't approach to him until Michael gave him that chance while they were about to start doing Off the Wall. According to Jones, both of the Jackson twins were very introverted, shy, and non-assertive. One example was when Joseph Jackson was working with Temperton on writing some of the tracks. The first song that Jackson and Temperton had written together as a duo was Rock With You, which the pair wrote in under 2 weeks. Before the song came into plan, Jackson had said to Temperton that the song needed to be an up-tempo and easily danceable for everybody's song that will be played forever, and the two sat down, coming up with several ideas at once and jotting them down. However, the song originally had the title, I Wanna Eat You Up, but Jackson later requested for Temperton to change the title because it was deemed too provocative for the album, later choosing a more catchy and more memorable title, Rock With You. In addition to the songwriting process and also credibility he received for the song, Joseph accepted his brother's offer to record backing vocals to help him out with the very complex layering that Michael would regularly use in his songs. However, Rock With You wasn't the only time Joseph Jackson was featured in, both lyrically and vocally. In almost all of the songs from the Off the Wall record, except She's Out of My Life, and It's the Falling in Love, Joseph was a credited backing vocalist and co-songwriter. The record's lead single, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, and its third track, Workin' Day and Night, were the only two songs on the album that Michael and Joseph wrote together and performed as a duo, with Michael describing those two moments as unforgettable. On how he thought about his experiences during the Off the Wall album sessions, Joseph Jackson stated in his 2008 autobiography, quote, "Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album is easily one of my favorite albums of all time. It was practically the very last time that anybody heard of disco music. It was the last chance anybody had to listen and dance to disco, and what a worthful last chance it was. There has never been another disco album like it since, and it's probably going to stay that way for ages to come." Jackson continued his adoration of the album by saying, "It was very fun being with Michael and Quincy and Rod and everyone else in the studio and being a part of the recordings. It was possibly one of the best experiences I have had, as a songwriter especially because it allowed me to get creative. It allowed me to work so many incredibly talented people and become their friends. It allowed to use the talents that were given with the help of God, of course, I had on the album to make it simply a killer, but going outside off the studio was another story." In the middle of helping Michael record Off the Wall, Jackson had to go back filming seasons for Meet the Robinsons, which has moved to CBS from ABC since the late winter of 1978. However, Jackson began to sense a great difference from when he first started the series into the near end of the series, particularly from co-star Patricia Hallenbeck. In 1971, both stars met on set of the sitcom during the filming of a season 1 episode. Back then, Hallenbeck was a seasoned indie actress who made her mark in commercials and small movie roles while Jackson was on his way into becoming a child prodigy, thanks to his role in the Jackson 5 cartoon that premiered on September of that year. The two didn't hang out much on set, so the Meet the Robinsons crew pushed the working relationship forward, as the two's characters had tons of scenes together. Jackson and Hallenbeck began hanging out off-set, going to the tourist attraction spots in Los Angeles Jackson had not seen prior, and mentored him about his acting styles. Though others initially encouraged the friendship, with the show's co-creator and executive director David McConaughey dismissing the relationship as a professional courtship, Jackson increasingly became uncomfortable as the months went on around Hallenbeck whenever she would constantly hold his hands without his consent or start conversations or tell jokes that Jackson wouldn't get nor understand most of the time. This behavior would later expand from somewhat suspicious to downright sinister when Jackson was between the ages of 15 to 20, as Jackson would later state years later, quote, "As I got much older, that is when they started exposing themselves to me. They would do it at night most of the time. The director told them one night to keep me in good hands for the night, and they did. That night, I went to the unisex bathrooms, but the person were there. I tried to leave, but they insisted for me to stay and watch them for the majority of the time. I was 15 at the time and very shy to tell the person that I felt uncomfortable with what they were doing. But they said to me that we were close in age and it was safe, but I didn't feel safe at all." In addition to the horrifying experiences he had to witness off-screen regarding one of his cast members, Jackson was not prone to accidents and injuries, which his beloved character of Jack Robinson always had to endure to as a part of his personality. However, while filming an episode for the sitcom with one of his elder co-stars Tamara Shtex in 1979, at the age of 21, Shtex accidentally hurt Jackson's nose while opening a cabinet, which actually made it into the final cut of the episode. While it was played off for comedic relief, the reality it caused was no laughing matter, as Joseph's nose ended up needing immediate surgery and ultimately decided to undergo his first rhinoplasty. In a strange turn of events, this ended up happening the same time Michael had his nose severely damaged while rehearsing, and both brothers ended up choosing the same surgeon, Stephen Heflin, to conduct the procedure, who worked with Elizabeth Taylor, Joan Rivers, Ivana Trump, and was their preferred choice for many years to come. When Off the Wall was released on August of 1979, it cemented Michael Jackson into great success due to its critical and commercial success. But Michael nor Joseph did not forget their important roles in the Jacksons at all. So much so that in 1979 and 1981, They toured with their brothers on the Destiny and Triumph tours to heavily support their 1978 and 1980 albums of the same names. On the tours, many songs from the Off the Wall album were included into the tour's respective set lists, like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Workin' Day and Night, Off the Wall, Rock With You and She's Out of My Life. In addition, the stage design, costume design, and choreography were done by Michael, Joseph, Marlon Jackson, and Jackie Jackson. In regards to both tours, all of the Jacksons were praised for their vocal performances, choreography, and showmanship. The Triumph Tour, in particular, marked the beginning of Joseph receiving positive remarks and reviews during his time within the group, mainly for his musicality, danceability, vocal ability, and joined leadership with Michael, where he was seen front and center with him for the majority of the tour's run from July to September 1981, with many of his 21st century fans calling the Triumph Tour Joseph Jackson's peak tour. However, the nation would discover a sad end of an era when CBS announced by July of 1981, Meet the Robinsons was suddenly being canceled on November of that year. When the entire cast and crew of the show heard about the news, they were completely saddened and shocked as they had already filmed new episodes of the 8th season throughout the summer of 1980, and all decided to come together and film 5 last episodes in only 3 weeks. Joseph, who was on the Jacksons tour by then, had to miss out on the filming but reportedly decided last minute to make a guest appearance on the final episode to celebrate with them. Cited as one of the most emotional finales of television, the finale of Meet the Robinsons ranked up to a total of over 12.4 million viewers and finished up with a total of 200 episodes within 8 seasons, marking its history as one of the longest-running sitcoms of all time. Fortunately, the series ended on a positive note and allowed its viewers to reflect on its legacy and importance in the African-American community. And ironically enough, the finale for the show was when the Jacksons officially ended their Triumph tour, even deciding to release a live album of the tour, and the Jackson brothers would not perform together again since. However, Michael nor Joseph were not officially done with solo music just yet, as Michael was secretly planning his own individual comeback to music solely take the world and the music industry by storm, which may or may not inspire Joseph to do the same thing.